Really excited to have Dr. Nick Almond joining us from London of the Finance.vote team. Thanks a lot, Nick, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, really excited to learn more about everything that you're working on at Finance.vote, and got some neat governance systems that you're building, as well as prediction markets that use Chainlink Oracle. So really excited to dive deeper into those.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah.
Cool. And so for the audience that might not be aware, do you want to maybe just start by giving a little background about yourself and what your team is currently working on and building?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I've been in crypto for quite a while, sort of peripherally, but I've been full-time crypto for the since about summer last year. Up to that point, I've been an academic for the last 20 years. So my background's actually in physics. So I did a PhD in physics over a decade ago now. So I was in experimental physics for a bit. I sort of drifted into working in astrophysics for a little while, and then sort of fell in love with education and sort of spreading the sort of science philosophy to as wide a people as could get. And ended up taking a sort of lectureship position teaching mathematics. So I was teaching maths for a while, which is where I discovered Bitcoin, because I was running a course on cryptography. And yeah, so I sort of fell down the rabbit hole of blockchain quite a long time ago. And, for the last 10 years or so, I've been working in universities building governance infrastructure. So creating institutional governance systems for like improving the way people teach and work, things like that. And I was designing things that I realized would be really cool if you could put them on the internet. And, the problem with the internet is it's a kind of messy free-for-all. Mm-hmm. And the way in which you could take some of these ideas around collective intelligence and mass collaboration was blockchain, and specifically voting technology. So, so for about 4 or 5 years now, I've just been completely obsessed on the idea that we can build voting tools that essentially allow us to collaborate online. And around summer last year, the pandemic really threw things up in the air for a lot of people. And I thought, might as well be now when we make the jump and do it. So I've got some good friends. We've been talking about this stuff for years, and we just thought, right, let's do it. And we managed to conduct a private sale in summer last year, and we were up and running, and we just all quit our jobs. I left academia, where I was an associate dean, and sort of walked away from all that sort of stuff. And since then we've just been working 24/7 on building cool crypto stuff. And that's what's got us here now. So yeah, our sort of vision is to build this governance platform that will allow us to collaborate, to start with, on DeFi systems. So to build voting technologies that allow us to reach consensus and find new ways of bringing communities together and collaborating online.
That's amazing. Yeah, it definitely crazy how things have changed, and a lot of governance is turning online. We'll see how that kind of changes with the real world in voting and different governance.
We just all moved online essentially last year. Yeah. So I mean, I thought this is the moment, because there's a real need for us to build these tools now.
So what did you get your PhD in? What were you studying previously in academia?
So I was in a kind of weird subset of physics and biology. So it was like biophysical surface science. So I was I was shining lasers at things to try and understand how DNA orders on gold surfaces. So nanotechnology, you could probably call it. It's trying to understand systems that are very, very small. And yeah, it was amazing. I loved it, but I sort of realized that I wasn't an experimental physicist, because it involved sitting in a dark lab and twiddling buttons and repeating the same experiment 100 times in a row.
Yeah.
Much more enjoyed talking to people and working in kind of like social systems. So drifted out of it. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and there's something really important about getting that deep into a problem.
Right.
That you kind of get to the very bottom of a problem and get to the edge of what knowledge is. And then there's something kind of really exciting about that. But then realized I didn't want to spend the next, 50 years working in it. So jumped a few times into different domains.
That's awesome. And so with Finance.vote, do you want to maybe go into what makes it unique and exactly kind of some of the problems that you're trying to solve and how you go about those?
Yeah, I mean, I really like that this sort of emphasis on unique. I think that's what I think we're very unique in the sense that we do things that are quite different to what has been tried so far in the DeFi space. So I think that's what's flying us under the radar a little bit. I think, you know, those sort of maps of the crypto space that you get where everything puts into little categories. There isn't really any of them with categories with the governance box on yet. So we're unique in the sense that we're governance first. We're trying to build governance infrastructure. And there isn't many people doing that yet. But we're also interesting in the way that our roadmap is going to be steered by the crowd. So we've got this kind of, we're starting with prediction markets, which is a kind of component of governance systems of the future, we think. And then using that to develop voting technology that'll branch out into all these different kinds of dApps, governance dApps. And it'll be our users that tell us what to build next. And I think that's quite interesting and new. So yeah, we're new in the sense we're using quadratic voting, and there's not many people doing that yet as well. So I think Gitcoin are one of the crews that are using it in a really interesting ways, but I think it's really disruptive and will be really important for the future. And so we're trying to break ground on that. I think voting technologies generally are going to be really important for DeFi first, and then, you know, for the wider sort of social system. So yeah, we're trying to break ground on a number of fronts.
Yeah,
really. So we're unique in positioning ourselves on fresh ground, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely see that with prediction markets. One of the fascinating, I mean, like the whole thing was kind of a mess, but with the US election, with the prediction markets that were available this year compared to previously, as the election was happening live, that was more accurate than if you're watching one of the news stations of like where people felt that like the vote was at the time. And it was really interesting to see it kind of just like changing throughout how information is received to the people.
Yeah, I think that's why we've seen a huge influx of prediction markets since then. I mean, so we actually launched our vote markets on election day because we just thought we were staying up for like 4 weeks to get it done on election, just for poetic reasons more than anything else. But yeah, no, I think it showed. So prediction markets are they're essentially like collective intelligence tools.
Yeah.
And the data that was coming out of those things was particularly the Augur market, and that had been tokenized, and people were trading, you know, yes Trump and no Trump tokens, was responding to the context more rapidly than statistical models had done.
Yeah.
And that just showed it for me. I thought we couldn't be more better positioned at this time to be developing these kind of tools, because it showed, you know, firsthand with real evidence that it was going to do something that it's a new way of aggregating information and consensus that hasn't existed yet. So yeah, I thought that moment was really important, and you know, and the voting, you know, issues as well, where you know, all of a sudden the fidelity and, you know, of voting of a whole election was being called into question at the same time. Yeah, so really we're working on the right things at the right time, I think, on that front.
Yeah, no, I totally see that too. And I mean, prediction markets, I mean, something that even Vitalik very first talked about in the original vision of Ethereum. And how do you see Finance.vote play into the future of DeFi and where it's positioned right now, and what's kind of your approach with decentralized finance?
Yeah, so we're framing ourselves as the consensus layer for DeFi, in the sense that, so I was watching the market, and as I have done for years now, but what I think really kicked off the whole DeFi boom, there was a couple of sort of new primitives that sort of hit the market last year, one of which was governance tokens. In the sense, you know, they're very much the kind of utility token of this cycle, where, you know, everyone has a governance token, but not many of them really do much yet, in the sense that, you know, the utility of a governance token is power. So how much power does it give to the token holders? And at the moment, not many of them give genuine power to the participants and the holders of those tokens. So I think where we're positioning ourselves is giving not just our token power and of directing a decentralized network, but building tools that other governance tokens can utilize to increase their utility. So we want to create these kind of governance dApps for DAOs, we've been calling them, which so people can like use our tools to genuinely start to integrate their users into the direction of the system.
Right.
And the other big one was liquidity mining. So it's essentially the process of issuing tokens to participants for a variety of things, mainly liquidity mining at the time, for providing liquidity. You can watch where I think it was Compound who did this first. There was about 90 million TVL in Compound in June last year. Now there's nearly 4 billion, and mainly due to giving out tokens to participants. So it's basically quantitative easing. But what I think we're trying to do is build systems that allow the token holders to tune this stuff. Right. So we're releasing our own liquidity mining system, and our twist on it is that our users will be able to direct future iterations of it. So how the tokens are emitted and how many and who gets them. And we're really trying to build systems that incentivize participation in the so genuine participation. So we've got something called vote mining, which will issue tokens to users for voting. So to break this kind of voter apathy problem that you get in governance systems as well. So how we're framing the DeFi, we kind of want to sort of sit above the kind of DeFi layer and build systems that plug into it and improve the social consensus abilities of the whole space. So we're aiming to give it a bit of a governance upgrade.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think there's a few pieces in there that I found really interesting. One, with these governance tokens, I mean, you're completely right. Like they're the utility token. I was thinking about this the other night too. The utility token of the cycle that we're seeing, and the power is kind of in the eye of the beholder. Like, what are you really getting? And like, you're not really getting that much power unless like you're actually like voting on this stuff. And then it's like, how many of them are actually like voting at the moment? And like bankers, one I see really interesting because there's a lot of governance participation that's happening right now within like their ecosystem. And then there's others, Aave usually has a lot of participation, but then there's some that are governance tokens and no one really like votes on anything. And so it's like, how do you increase that participation, even though it might be worth value and the value of it, the price of it's going up or whatever it may be, even if there's no voting. So it's like, how are these where's the valuation of these come from, and so forth. And then also with the total value locked of Compound, and I was like going through some old slides and some videos of Sergey's from the beginning of the year and like the beginning of the summer even, and our DeFi slides had like total value locked in DeFi, and it was barely crossing over 1 billion, and now like going to DeFi Pulse, I don't know what it's at today, like 30 billion plus something. Yeah, it's just insane, the growth that we've seen in less than a year.
Yeah, so it's really, for me, it's about essentially this new kind of incentive alignment games that have turned into so they're both utility tokens in the sense that they align incentives between participants. So we use them. So we use our token to incentivize users to participate in our prediction markets, for example, but they will also be used as voting power. But the issue around how much power it actually gives, participation is still incredibly low on, I mean, sometimes intentionally. So on Compound, for example, you need 1% of the token supply. You need like $25 million worth of tokens or more I think it's a lot more than that now, to create a proposal. And that's to stop the kind of mock rule issues. They necessarily have to be a little bit gated. But the participation is pretty low, largely because the gap of knowledge there to meaningfully make monetary policy decisions isn't quite there yet. But also because token whales run everything. So there's actually not much point in voting because you'll see people with like tiny fractions of the token supply. They're essentially not influencing anything. They're doing it for fun, really, participating. And in some cases it costs them money for transactions, but can they materially shift the direction of the network? Probably not. And so we're trying to, it's one of the use cases for quadratic voting actually, is to shift the power away from this purely plutocratic thing. So who's got the most tokens? But we're also got reputation systems in there. So you earn more vote power by being correct in the market. So we hope to have a DAO where there's people who are like, there's token whales in there, people who bought their way in, but there's people who've proven and participated the way in as well.
Right. Yeah, so I find that that's so interesting and such a unique model that is definitely going to be the future of this, because you see that in the people that kind of just like have the mirrors of decentralization. They call it decentralized. Yeah, it's like, all right, well, the founder still owns 60% of the tokens. Like, what's the difference between that and like just like having 60% of the tokens? Like, you're saying that, oh, everyone can vote, everyone says a vote. It's like, no, it's like your vote has like the final say in this whole thing.
Exactly.
So how you let the little guy that's participating and actually a part of this and like kind of the changes that we're trying to see. So yeah, I love what you're working on it, and definitely see how this is definitely going to be the future of governance within these different.
Yeah, I'm glad you can see that. I think it's finding other routes in. So we hope to have users with a few tens of thousands of tokens, like a few $100s worth of tokens, actually influencing decisions in real ways, because they've been in with us since day one and participated and been there building the network with us, and they're the people who should be running the thing, really, rather than someone who's just some fund or something that buys the way in later on.
You see that all the time with DAOs too. Yeah, and even more so, where it's like, oh, we're a DAO, but it's like, well, the VCs and like the founders own 90% of the tokens. Okay.
I heard someone calling them pretend DAOs the other day.
Yeah,
I think it's quite endemic of what's happening. Yeah.
No, yeah, very, very, very interesting. And it's exciting to see. I mean, like, what do you think are like some of the keys too? Do you think that's like the biggest hindrance of participation in governance models, or what other, is there anything else that you're kind of noticing?
I think there's a few things that we see as interesting. So it's actually the same as participation in governance models in the real world as well. It's like, how do you get people to, vote in elections and meaningfully understand the policy decisions? So, out in the real world, you use representative democracy, and we've got some of that going on in DeFi, where you have these like protocol politicians. And that kind of just hands it off to a small group of sort of influencers who run everything, which is kind of not really where we want to go. So I think there's a few things. I think one is just education. So, I've trained teachers for the last 10 years and build education systems. So we're going to have a big education function, which is like bring people on, develop our DAO participants to understand the rules of the game so they can meaningfully influence it. But also make it more understandable. So instead of starting with a blank slate where you make this proposal where you need like a degree level in economics to understand it, to make these systems which are like tunable parameters. So get like variables in the smart contract that can be changed, and they're a lot more understandable. So like changing rates in a way that people can understand, and gamifying it a little bit to make it more accessible to everyday people. And also essentially paying people to take part. So, the principles are like mechanism design is like everyone will do something if the prices are right. So, everyone's got a price, right? So we will find the price of what it takes to get people to participate.
Right, yeah.
We tune these systems that sets the right amount of participation at the right level. So with this vote mining thing, we're going to be emitting tokens to users for like 5 years, which we think is enough runway for the DAO to sort of figure out how to do it sustainably, to start create a sort of circular token economy. So yeah, right incentives, closing the gap on knowledge, and making it kind of fun is a big part of it. And you're making it affordable as well. At the moment, it costs hundreds of dollars to vote on Ethereum, which is a blocker we've just hit.
Yeah.
So finding scalable systems and going to the users and doing what they want from a blockchain system a little bit. So, finding the product market fit, we don't want to, so our system's built in a way that, the first phase, like this first 6 months, we are like the dictators in the system. And then the DAO will launch in a few months, and then we hand off a lot of the management key power to that.
Yeah.
But we're still on our roadmap. And then the final phase is we're off roadmap and we have no idea where it's going to go. And we've sort of designed it in a way where the participants have true agency or like control over the final destination of this thing. And I think that's important as well.
Are you exploring any layer 2s for voting? I think like layer 2s could be very interesting on that front of being able to do the voting kind of off on this other layer, this off chain, and then be able to like put those onto Ethereum, wherever it may be, and be able to reduce, because definitely the cost is definitely a huge one. Like in what you're saying too with paying someone, that's interesting. But like, I don't even think like you could pay people to go vote for your governor or your president, like I think like the reason that people don't vote, even more of what you talked about even previous before that, is the trust and like the education. And how that becomes like the most important. Like if you don't think your vote matters and it's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Like the DAO and the VCs, they own 51%, like my vote, who cares? Type situation. It's not very motivating to go out and pay $100 for a transaction to sit there and have my voice heard.
This is our big live problem at the moment. I mean, when we launched our vote markets, it cost $5 to vote. And, we built the system in a way that it would be profitable to participate in this thing. And if you make good predictions, you get tokens back. And it actually still is. I mean, I cast a vote last Sunday and it was $130. Now, I wouldn't expect the average user to do this.
Right.
It was about $5 to start with, but I still won about 250 back based on the predictions that I'd made. So it still actually makes economic sense. But, it's obviously off-putting to our users to spend this amount of money on voting. So we're at the moment, it's always been on our roadmap to play this kind of multi-chain philosophy. So we're actually going to start, I think potentially next week, we'll be launching an instance on Binance Smart Chain, but then we'll be going on to Polygon and XDAI.
Cool.
In quick succession, really. And the way our system works is we'll have a different set of tokens in each of these blockchains, because there's different assets there. So, and the users get to build what these assets are. So hopefully in the very near term, we'll have a very cheap sort of environment. And actually, we think voting is one of the best ways to test out these scaling solutions. So in a sort of white paper, we talk about creating this kind of bake-off environment where, we want thousands of votes, and the one that does this most economically or with the best user experience is probably the L2 that's going to win.
That's definitely a good way to think about it. It'll be interesting, like where this flows to on like the layer 2s. Like, is it really going to be just so fragmented and then no one's really a winner because they can't really talk?
This is the thing. I think we need more people. We need the adoptions where everything fills up and the like little islands, or like essentially their own little digital nation states. Some will be more popular than others, and some will have different cultures and values, or we'll all sort of disperse into these sort of dead places, and everything will die a little bit. But I think we need the scalable solutions to bring in the users, because at the moment Ethereum's just basically for whales at the moment, and we're going to get into this problem where we can't get the adoption if it's too expensive for 99.9% of the world to use. So I think scalability is going to be the next big frontier, really. And we plan on being one of the first dApps on each of these chains where people can try out these platforms.
Cool. And with oracles, so how do oracles and governance and prediction markets, how do these all play together? So this is really important for us. So the
the integration with Chainlink's really, I think, kicking us on to a next level in a big way. One, it's allowing us to decentralize more. So one of our design philosophies is for, you know, what we call maximal decentralization. So be as decentralized as possible. So we're serverless. We don't have, you know, we're true DApp. So we don't use AWS. We use IPFS. Our database is the blockchain. So it would make absolutely no sense for us to have a centralized data feed to settle our price predictions. And even then, you know, if let's say we were feeding it from Coinbase or whatever, it's still, we need the exact price at midnight every week. And we need that could get to the point where it's very valuable to manipulate that price to win the prediction market when we turn on our staking thing. So there could be quite a lot of money on it. So yeah, Chainlink really helps us to bring this kind of really high fidelity price at a particular time in a decentralized way. So it sort of just ticks all the boxes for us, really, in that sense. Yeah, and it's important for us in the sense it's our eyes to the outside world. So we're using them in slightly different ways to other prediction markets that are just looking at one token. We're looking at 10 in parallel. So we give users a token list of 10 tokens, and what they're predicting is that market order, if you like, which of these are going to perform best in a week, and you can vote on several on. So we actually need, we call smart Chainlink aggregators 10 in parallel at once at midnight. So we're using a lot of Chainlink oracles all in parallel, which I think is quite an interesting design. And yeah, and that's just the start of where we want this to go. So, you know, a big part of the prediction market philosophy, it actually started like 10 years before Bitcoin even, this idea of futarchy, which is that you could make a decision and then run a prediction market on whether it was a good decision or not. And so like, you know, like, well,
that's a prediction.
Yeah, so let's pass a policy decision, like, I don't know, let's get rid of income tax or whatever, and then run a prediction market on whether people thought it was going to be a good idea in a year's time. So this idea of letting betting markets play into governance. But what you need in those scenarios is like an oracle network that would be able to pull in the data to prove that outcome was the right idea. Like let's bring in economic data to prove that's you know, that was a good idea or not. So yeah, I expect that networks like Chainlink are going to, you know, branch out from price feed data into much more, you know, diverse data sets, and we hope that we'll be able to bridge this decision making and data sort of this gap, which could be, you know, really disruptive actually and really quite interesting. And the other sort of thing is that our governance systems will hopefully influence the feeds that Chainlink has as well. So we've got 10 tokens in our list at the moment, but we'll soon have a system for users deciding what token comes into the list. So, you know, there's 30,000 new tokens this year, and you know, most 99% of them are completely useless or scams or whatever. So our users are going to curate this list of, you know, what's the best, say 21 tokens in the space. And if Chainlink don't have a feed, they're going to create it for us. So, you know, our users will be able to essentially work with the Chainlink network to decide what new data feeds are added, which I think is really cool. So yeah, sort of linking the governance with the oracles in a way that's not been done before, I think.
Yeah, no, that'll be really interesting. And so we launched OCR off-chain reporting today. And so, yeah, it opens up a lot of 10x reduces the gas price for feeds. So basically what it does is open up for the network. Essentially, so what's happening is instead of every single node operator having to submit their data on chain, they all speak to each other and then submit one answer. So it just reduces the cost and the latency of this. So Yeah, you're going to see a whole lot more data and different feeds that are going to be able to be spun up a lot quicker. So yeah, excited what your community comes up with. And
yeah, that's exactly what. So we can have, you know, prediction markets where people are guessing on the sort of relative ordering of any kind of data, really, whether it's sports data or political data or anything like that. So yeah, we're really excited to where that goes to, actually, because I think we could be the first adopters of that technology when it comes.
Cool. Well, yeah, Nick, if people want to get involved with your community and join and learn more about what you're working on and get involved with the governance and prediction market that you're working on, where's the best place for them to go?
Sure. So our website's Finance.vote. So we use these .vote domain names, which is our kind of thing. I've got about 40 of them, but it's like Finance.vote is like the high level one. Markets.vote is our prediction market. Next week, you'll be able to play with Yield.vote, which is our liquidity mining thing, and Influence.vote is coming very shortly after that. You can follow us on Twitter on Finance.vote, but it's DOT in the middle, one word, Finance.vote. Join us on Telegram, so I'm in there a lot. If you get one of our identity tokens, which is like, we call it, you're a citizen because you get voting rights, and we have a little token gated chat where we spent a lot of time talking and working with our users, deciding what to do next. And you can follow me on Twitter on @DrNickA.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to drop all those links into the description afterwards. Yeah, it'll be really exciting, and yeah, looking forward to what you have to build. And yeah, maybe we can talk again in a few months and see where things are at.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, thank you, Nick, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll make sure to drop all those links in the description, and otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Awesome, man.
Thanks, Nick.
Later.